Heavy Iron Studios, a development studio created in 1999 by THQ, which eventually became independent in 2009. Known primarily as the developer of numerous licensed games based off of lots of different properties, including Scooby-Doo, Family Guy, a ton of Disney games, and, Evil Dead apparently. Yeah. Anyway, if you were like me and you grew up as a kid in the midst of the GameCube, PS2, and Xbox generation, you probably played at least one of their games. Some of them even made the player's choice lines in the big three consoles. But let's be real for a second. If you knew who Heavy Iron was before this video, you and I both know what game box you looked on the back of to find that out. So please, if you have played SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom, please imagine that we're holding hands right now, and feel free to join me for a nostalgic montage in 3, 2, 1. Do you remember SpongeBob's library and the wedgie bungee jumping and also the fish announcer and the hand that always picked you up when you fell? And also Bubble Buddy was in this and Patrick ice skating. How could you not hit this guy without taking damage? Also that Rube Goldberg part where you always had trouble on as a kid. And how cool is this part on Sand Mountain where the boulder went through the wall? And the platforms during the Robot Patrick boss fight where you could stand and not get hit by a spin attack. And the cows with jean jackets and mullets. And f*** off, Kelp Forest! And did you have trouble learning to wall jump? And also wasn't the music so goddamn fantastic? CAMBFAR, yes so. If you can't tell, I rather like this game. Not only was it my first GameCube game ever, it was released on Halloween, the day after my birthday. Not to mention that I was a huge SpongeBob fan as a kid. This game came at just the right time for so many kids that it's garnered a huge cult following online, and it even made the player's choice selection for all three consoles it appeared on. This game is special to my generation, and it's not just because of nostalgia. There's a really well-designed game and world here, and I want to share it with all of you. So please, join me as we take a look at SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. So, this game is a 3D platformer, very much along the lines of your Banjo or your Mario, meaning you have a primary collectible, golden spatulas, that is required to unlock new levels that they themselves contain even more spatulas. As a side note, the people who designed this gameplay system deserve a high five, and maybe a lot of hugs also. Instead of forcing a predetermined set of objectives or items for the player to complete or collect, players can pick and choose what they want to do, and since there's so many spatulas, like, no one's going to do it the same way twice, which is just genius. Okay, anyway, but there are also lots of mechanics which you will need if you want to collect all those spatulas. But this game does a really good job of teaching you those mechanics in a way that doesn't feel too overwhelming or too spread out. You learn most of the basic gameplay elements and controls before even leaving SpongeBob's house. You have the twirl, the upward smash, and the ground pound attacks. You can jump, double jump, and move the camera any which way. You can collect socks and shiny objects to net yourself golden spatulas, and you can smash tikis and hit buttons and cool stuff will happen. Dialogue boxes are short, concise, and extremely skippable, which is absolutely sublime, but the game isn't anywhere near finished teaching you things. In Jellyfish Fields, you learn about bungee jumping, sliding, wall jumping, checkpoints, warp boxes, and 4 different kinds of enemies. The enemies are introduced especially well. Each new robot type gets their own little cutscene showing them using their attacks on innocent bystanders. You don't have dialogue boxes telling you strategies or what to avoid, but you still learned everything you need to know to tackle each enemy. In this stage, you also learn that SpongeBob will get new abilities later on, and revisiting older levels is encouraged. Encouraged is the key word here. Some games are a little more forceful. And the learning doesn't even stop there. I haven't even touched on the other characters yet. Patrick and Sandy appear in levels alongside SpongeBob, though both are never in the same level. For a character that's known for being so dumb, Patrick's sections are ironically the most puzzle-based, since he has the ability to throw objects to hit switches and teeter-totters. Sandy is the most mobile character, being able to glide with her lasso and swing on floating Texas. Okay. No one character can get all the golden spatulas, which by consequence changes up the gameplay to keep it from getting stale. Speaking of which, all of the mechanics feel extremely solid and reliable. When you turn on a dime. None of this Madagascar nonsense where you have to make an awkward circle to turn around because you're a goddamn zebra. You go exactly where the analog stick is pointed, the jumping is very predictable, and the double jump triggers from anywhere in your initial arc, unlike some games. The camera is a bit bollocks though. Horizontal panning is fine, but vertical panning is either all or nothing. I mean, look at this! Who thought that this was a good idea? One thing that this game, and well, most 3D platformers always seems to have is what I like to call juggling, where getting hit sends you flying into another hazard, most likely goo or a cliff, killing you. Just give me some reasonable invincibility frames here, people. Speaking of mechanics, let's talk about how the game makes good use of what elements to include in a given level based on what the challenges are you have to face in said level. Downtown Bikini Bottom is a great example of this. In this level, one of the objectives is to collect 11 steering wheels. To make the challenge engaging and less frustrating, the level is constructed to make the challenge in finding the wheels and not getting to them. The stage starts off being closed off by a maze of fences, but you slowly destroy them all, allowing you to take advantage of the sponge ball power-up to roll around much faster than normal. On top of that, you get to use Sandy to climb buildings using your hover and swinging techniques, making the level a breeze to traverse, allowing you to put more of your time into searching and not traversing. And if I'm being real for a second, the whole game feels like that. The game lets you instantly warp from any golden spatula mission from anywhere in the game. It's f***ing genius. Why isn't that in more games? The rest of the levels are all uniquely designed and the set pieces are all colorful and creative and make use of the game's evolving mechanics. Goo Lagoon has you going from a beach to a gigantic sandcastle to a series of caves into a carnival. Rock Bottom has you infiltrating a museum filled with lasers or swinging over giant chasms. Sand Mountain takes the game's sliding mechanic and gives you 3 hills that have branching paths, secrets, and time trials. The Dutchman's Graveyard has you crossing toxic rivers using your wall jump ability to its fullest, and even engaging in gigantic ship battles. And it would be an injustice not to mention the Dream level, where you can jump on music notes, fight robots on Krabby Patties, or, avoid cows throwing pies at you over the skies of Texas. Levels aren't always pure platforming either. Kelp Forest will test you with switch puzzles and force you to plan your route carefully. The Bikini Bottom hub world isn't empty either, with its own fair share of secret golden spatulas, socks, and even some super secret things. But you didn't hear it from me. You have 6 bosses that involve large arenas with a fish occasionally narrating, where you make use of the different characters and your most recent abilities to take down some cool robot and fan service bosses. They're not too difficult and... oh, okay, actually the game isn't that difficult as a whole. The boss battles are probably some of the most difficult parts. Some sliding time trials will give you trouble, and finding some of the socks will be tricky, but the game is overall a bit of a breeze. You have lots of stuff to do though, so it never really feels like you're blowing through the game. And as much as I love it, I wish they could have pulled this off for the sequel too. And the music! I've had it playing for a while now, and man is it great! Each track fits its location so well, and they aren't just simple loops. Each repeat of the main melodies lead into a new section that uses a wide variety of instruments and catchy rhythms. Songs that embody SpongeBob's world like the Bikini Bottom, Jellyfish Fields, and Downtown themes are there, and then you've got tracks that just crank up the badass knob to full. I mean, just listen to the difference between these two. But why SpongeBob? Everything I've mentioned has the makings of a great game, but would this game not work with any other cartoon or game character as the license? It probably would, but to keep the game on the same level as this one, the artists, musicians, writers, and voice actors would need to be just as familiar with the license as they were with SpongeBob. This game is a love letter to SpongeBob fans, and it is a shining example of how games could feel like living cartoons with enough care and respect for the source material. Look, the only way this game could feel more like SpongeBob is if Stephen Hillenburg and Tom Kenny had a baby, which was delivered by Jacques Cousteau, but it turns out the ultrasound was inaccurate because it was twins, and those twins grew up and directed this game. This game feels like SpongeBob, it sounds like SpongeBob, oh my god, it is just literally SpongeBob, am I not making that clear? But realistically though, this game takes all of the best locations and characters from seasons 1 to 3 and just makes reference after reference. The boxes are from the Imagination episode, the invisible boatmobile is there, SpongeBob's face from Tea at the Tree Dome, Robot SpongeBob having the inflatable arms from Muscle Bob Buff Pants, the bus constantly leaving in Rock Bottom, the announcer fish talking over boss fights, and this is actually just a reference to the Suds episode. The makers of this game clearly love SpongeBob because this is a nostalgic overload. How do you think I felt as a kid whose favorite show was SpongeBob when playing this game? I haven't even mentioned that pretty much the entire voice cast worked on this game, except for Mr. Krabs, with Clancy Brown being replaced by Joe White in this case. See, this is a situation similar to that of Shrek 2, replacing Eddie Murphy with Mark Moseley, who, by the way, also replaced Eddie Murphy as Mushu in the Mulan sequel. And what I'm trying to say here is that yes, we can tell the difference. But really, all things considered, it's not a huge deal here. I know you at least understand that this game is not just another licensed piece of shovelware by now. This game has love and talent behind it. I've seen fan art and even some behind the scenes details from some devs. I've had the pleasure of finding lots of other fans of this game online, be it through YouTube, forum posts, or even just reading the game's various wiki entries. And to give credit where credit is due, this is probably the first game to actively support homosexual robotic relationships.
No! You don'ts destroy my beautiful bride! We were supposed to get married next week!
Did he say married?
Look, Sandy, I know you're from Texas, but I thought better of you. And that's all there really is to say about Battle for Bikini Bottom. This review has been probably a decade in the making for me at this point, and I'm so very glad to have shared it with some of you. But I'm not done yet. Heavy Iron dabbled into the world of SpongeBob SquarePants more than once, and so I would ask you if you could join me on a Let's Play quest to retrieve a crown. Neptune's crown. Which is in Shell City. Goodbye.
That's right. Start making me money!